News Now is brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, Docomo Pacific, island-wide, worldwide, the choice is clear. And Micronesia Renewable Energy, go solar for zero money down. And Colgate Optic White, whiter teeth in 1 week. From the Pacific News Center in Hagåtña, Guam, here's Clint Ridgell and Janella Carrera, Betsy Brown, Roselle Romanes, PNC Sports with Blake Watson, and Weather with Rebecca Kim. With your news now.
Hafa and good evening, Guam. I'm Janella Carrera with PNC's News Now.
And I'm Clint Ridgell. Thanks for tuning in. Topping your news tonight, Attorney Curtis Vandeveld is suing GovGuam to force the government to properly reimburse property owners who had their land taken by the government for public use. The government can take private property for public use for things like roads under the concept of eminent domain, but they have to compensate the property owners. Public Law 2273 requires that GovGuam not only pay private property owners for property that was taken, but it also requires that GovGuam stop taxing them for property that was taken. Attorney Vandeveld says that the government has been taking private property without compensation since 1945.
We're hoping that each of the gubernatorial candidates will take a position on their intent to comply with this law.
And the public law estimated that the total value of all land taken without compensation was at least $73 million. Vandeveld says that federal highway funds could be used to pay this off.
DFS Guam is not backing down in its fight for the lucrative airport concession contract, even if it's been over a year since they were kicked out of the airport's retail space. The ousted company has refiled its complaint in Superior Court alleging misconduct in the handling of the procurement process that led to the contract being awarded to Lotte Duty Free. The 39-page complaint states that the Guam International Airport Authority unlawfully executed the contract with Lotte because the airport's board of directors should have suspended the RFP when a protest was filed. Further, DFS points out that they have held the concession contract for 30 years, but this time around, Lotte, quote, intentionally and maliciously acted with conscious disregard by bribing airport officials with gifts and hotel stays during the RFP process. This is the second time DFS has filed a complaint in court. The first suit filed was dismissed back in July without prejudice, which allowed DFS the opportunity to refile its complaint. The airport authority, meanwhile, issued a statement pointing out that the complaint was already dismissed by the courts and even by the Office of Public Accountability. The airport also noted that since Lotte has moved in, they've renovated the retail space and they pay 3 times more rent than DFS ever did, which helped the airport obtain over $200 million in bond financing. And in other news, Republicans and Democrats seem to swap sides in a forum hosted by the business community today. Senatorial candidates answered some tough questions, but perhaps the most interesting answers came from the topic of minimum wage. 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans answered some tough questions from the business community in a forum hosted by the Rotary Club of Guam today. And as expected, raising the minimum wage was the hot topic of the forum, a topic that has typically been divided by party lines, with Democrats leaning for it and Republicans against it. But today, both sides reached across the aisle. First, we have the GOP side.
I think minimum wage should be raised. Poverty is one of the biggest reasons for a lot of our problems on Guam. 10.10 an hour helps get us above that poverty line.
You're asking me if I support a 40% increase in compensation. Absolutely. If the revenues were up 40%.
I would support it if there's an economic impact study and that economic impact study supported that we should increase. I'm an advocate actually for a workforce that gets paid well.
I support it, it needs to be increased. But to support it now, to change that now, implement law now, I think it's not needed at this time because of the way our economic structure is.
Raising the minimum wage is not the solution to economic goals or of our working poor. But we cannot have a wage policy that allows people to receive government assistance because their wages are just too low.
Rather than talking about why I don't support the minimum wage, let's talk about how and the reason why President Obama and the federal government supports the increase of minimum wage. I think that we should work with the businesses to give their employees an incentive to go to college and get your degree and earn a higher salary.
And the panel consisted of candidates who have never been elected to office in the past.
Lawmakers went into session today to discuss Vice Speaker B.J. Cruz's hybrid retirement plan bill. The measure would allow the retirement fund to administer a new retirement plan that the board says is necessary to keep retirees who are on the defined contributions plan off of welfare rolls.
I know firemen that have come up to me and said they've had 17 years of service and they've got $87,000 or $88,000 in their DC. And I just kind of look at them and I'm like, that's less than you make in a year. And he goes, yes, sir.
And according to data from the retirement fund, there are many GovGuam retirees under the defined contributions plan with this exact problem. The retirement fund says this will lead to a disaster when GovGuam retirees under the DC plan are not able to live off of their retirement. Although session was originally called to deal solely with this hybrid bill, Senator Mike Limtiaco was successful in adding his bill to appropriate excess funds from his office to the hospital. Bill 411 would appropriate the $75,000 that his office has saved from its operations. And Senator Limtiaco, who is not seeking re-election, would like to see this money go towards the purchase of a cryostat, 2 BiPAP systems, and 10 infusion pumps. The senator believes he has the support to pass this measure.
All of my colleagues have really stepped up to make sure that the hospital is given the resources that they need, and we've done that throughout the 32nd Guam legislature. I don't see any reason. In fact, I'm expecting unanimous support for the bill to pass.
Session was recessed this afternoon. It will resume at 9 a.m. tomorrow, where senators will go into the Committee of the Whole to hear from the Retirement Fund Board.
All right, we'll stay right there. Coming up next on News Now. GMH tightens up security.
And thousands participate in the Great Guam Shakeout. All that and more when News Now continues in PNC after this.
Father Duenas Friars swim with the Dolphins and soccer coming up on PNC Sports. See you there.